Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. It's another week of FPT Radio Live. It's October the 9th. And, John, the New England Patriots have not scored a touchdown in a very, very long time. It's now I know what Joe Montana felt like in back-to-back playoff games against the Giants. Just absolutely, utterly destroyed over the course of two games. And boy, is this ever emphasize the fact that the days of Tom Brady are very, very much over.
What a cheap shot against the second greatest quarterback ever. And, the interesting thing is Montana and Brady share one thing besides winning a lot of Super Bowls. They both had 3-game losing streaks in the postseason, which, again, if that's the worst thing that we can say by the quarterback, that's pretty impressive. But that did happen to Montana and Brady. But, then they came back and won some Super Bowls after that because they were so darn good. But the way the Patriots look right now, you can make a case they're the worst team in football. There's only one team with a worse record than them, and that's Carolina. But at least Carolina is somewhat entertaining because they got Bryce Young, and he's had his problems in his first 5 games of his career. But maybe there's some hope there. There's no hope with the Patriots. To me, the one player that I enjoyed watching play is a cornerback who's a rookie, Christian Gonzalez, who's now up for the year. That was the one player who was this kid looks like a stud. The rest of the team is just not very good. And the worst thing is they're boring to watch play. There's nothing there.
Well, look, I mean, they're atrocious on the offensive line, and everything else after that is almost just as bad. I mean, David Andrews looks like he's taken a step back. There's at one point, and again, look, Mac Jones is certainly, I think we're both certainly giving him the benefit of the doubt coming into this season, but so far it looks like it, or at least it feels like he's almost taken a little bit more of a step backwards, and that's alarming because is it the perfect situation for him? Absolutely not. I mean, I think last year was, a disaster in many aspects, but this year between just not playing well and look, there was a point, John, in yesterday's game at one snap where I think it was they timed it. It was 1.7 seconds, and he was already leaning backwards with 2 defenders bearing down on him. That's how bad it was. So not only was he playing poorly himself, he wasn't really getting any help from the offensive line. And it's just, again, we talked about this before, and I'm going to plug the our Eye Test for 2 podcast because we had Tony Dungy on last week, and he had said the same thing that I said, and that is they're making mistake after mistake after mistake, and it just, there's no end in sight. You see these mistakes get made, and we sit there after some of these games and say, oh, if they would have just done this, that, and the other, they can clean that up and move on. Well, how many times have we come in here on Monday or Tuesday or whatever and said, oh, they just need to clean it up? Well, eventually you just got to accept that they can't clean it up, because right now that seems to be the case. They just don't, I don't know, John, I don't know if they're the worst team in the league, but I'm not gonna make a big argument against it, if it, you know what I mean, because again, it's getting harder and harder to refute that, because right now they are playing they've been outscored. Oh God, now I got to do math. 60, 72,
72 to 3 the last
72 to 3.
69 consecutive points they've given up. They were tied with Dallas 3-3 in the first quarter 8 days ago. So there was that, the salad days of the 2023 season.
And look at Dallas. I mean, Dallas is clearly a team that can only beat bad teams. I mean, I will get to Dallas in a minute, because I think last night was very revealing for them. But it's frustrating because, again, it does feel like this team just really has been treading water, and the same silly mistakes have not been fixed. The offense doesn't look any better with Bill O'Brien than it was Matt Patricia.
It looks worse, if that's possible.
Yeah. Well, I think that's because the offensive line is far worse. If there's anything, I think Mac's taken a step back, but if there's anything, it feels like it's taken a massive step backwards. It's the play of the offensive line. It's just been, I mean, they get no push rushing the ball at all. John. I mean, I'm sitting here, I'm like, wow, where have I seen this before? And I'm like, wow, this looks like the Tampa Bay running game from last year, which was one of the worst ever. They just they can't get the ball pushed forward. They can't pass protect well enough. And again, Mac Jones isn't good enough to overcome those things. Maybe again, you have Tom Brady back there. He masks a lot of those offensive line problems. Okay, you're not going to have a lot of those issues, but Mac's just not good enough to overcome that. And now you have a situation where you're 1-4. I mean, you're not going to the playoffs. I mean, there's no redeeming. There's nothing that's redeeming about any of these games, John. I mean, because if you think about it, go to the Jets game. I mean, they were about a half inch away from a miracle loss on that Hail Mary, if you think about it. I know maybe people have kind of blocked that out of your mind because they're like, wow, this Patriots team won not because of that, but that's how close it could be to a 0-5 start right now. That's how bad it's been.
They haven't scored an offensive touchdown or any touchdown since the second quarter of the Jets game. And that came on that broken play where the Jets blew coverage, which, is going to happen in the NFL. You sometimes take advantage of those mistakes. So you have to. But, you just look at the Patriots right now, Ian. They're 3-9 in their last 12 games. They're 10-17 in their last 27. Mac is 8-16 in his last 24 starts. Like, this has been trending in this direction for a while, and it's just getting worse, right? Like, every single game, the offense is gotten worse, right? They scored 20 the first week, 17. Then they scored 15 against the Jets, and then 3-0. Like, they're going to be in the negative pretty soon. And the alarming thing is they've scored 6 offensive touchdowns this year. Their offense has given up 4 touchdowns, 3 pick sixes, and then that fumble against Dallas that was returned for a touchdown a week ago. And Mac Jones, since he entered the league, which is only 2 years and 5 games ago, has thrown 6 pick sixes, the most in the league. Aaron Rodgers in his career has 4.
Well, again, that's more than Tom Brady did with the Patriots. And in fact, they've lost more home games in just the last couple seasons than Brady did in his entire career since the opening of Gillette Stadium in 2002. Again, no one's sitting here saying that he has to be Tom Brady. That's not a fair comparison. It's not a fair comparison to anyone. But one, if you're I'm a Brady honk for sure, but I'm not.
No, you're not.
Yeah,
Don't let anybody tell you that.
Okay, I've been called much harsher forms of that, but I'm not someone who goes out of my way to downplay Bill Belichick to prop up Tom Brady. I've never done that. I think it's fair to say I've never done that. I've always maintained that I believe in general that a great quarterback is always going to be more important than a great coach because of the fact that they're on the field. So that's my principal belief. It's not specific to those two. So, but for those who are very pro Brady, anti Belichick, they're having a field day right now because everything points to, well, it was Tom Brady. It was all Tom Brady. And again, like I said, I don't believe that because I'm a very reasonable thinker, John. I know some people accuse me of being a homer and all this stuff, but no, the reality of it is, do I think Tom Brady was the most important part in the driving force? Absolutely. Does that mean that Bill Belichick didn't have an impact? No, it just means that at the most important position in the sport, you had the very best player to ever play. And you did things that no other franchise ever did. So common sense tells me, well, the difference is that player. Because, well, for year after year after year, it wasn't the defense that was driving this team. It was the offense. They had good defenses, sure. I'm not saying they didn't. But you can't sit there and tell me that a team that I think maybe once or twice fell out of the top 5 in points per game in nearly 20 years was somehow the inferior unit to a defense that had some good points based defenses, but for much of the Brady run, fell in the bottom third in yards given up, and then averaged out to be about an average defense. So were they a good defense at times? Yeah, sure, no doubt about it. Did they have great moments? Absolutely. Overall, they were a far inferior unit to what the offense was, and the offense was driven by, well, Tom Brady. So yeah, he was the primary driving force of this dynasty, and everyone else that added into it has, plenty to be, credited for and everything like that. I'm not saying that, but clearly, John, I mean, it's not a coincidence. I mean, we've been saying it for years, John. 5-13 in the first 18 games under Belichick. And again, this isn't an indictment on Belichick. It's just pointing out the impact of a great quarterback. And then things immediately turn around with Tom Brady, and then immediately turn back around without him. That's not a coincidence, John. Okay?
No, he's 81-94 as a head coach without Tom Brady as the starting quarterback, and I'm including Cleveland because everybody loved him for what he did in Cleveland, which is make the playoffs once. So how he changed football and all the great assistant coaches he had, and he was building some program, and the Ravens won the Super Bowl in 2000. He left after the 95 season. How much impact did he have with the 2000 Ravens, who, by the way, in the 96 draft after he was gone, their top two picks were Ray Lewis and Jonathan Ogden.
Well, he was also somewhat indirectly responsible for them having those opportunities to get those picks. So I don't want to completely,
because he was so bad, right? He had a high draft pick in 96.
Well,
yeah. So let's give him credit for that.
I sense a little bit of animosity in your voice there, John. You're a little bit more cynical than I am today. It's okay,
I'm
though.
A Brady guy, you know that.
I know.
I'm more of a Brady guy than you are, which is kind of comical.
Well, I think you're more of a Brady anti-Belichick guy than I am. I don't know if anyone's more of a Brady guy than me.
No, that can't be possible. I don't even think the kids, his 3 kids are as much a Brady guy as you are.
I've known him longer.
You have. That's right. You've had that connection with him much, much longer.
Yeah.
As we'll find out, it'll be another year by Sunday.
Exactly.
So I just look, and I think Belichick's a great coach. And I think I wrote a column several years ago for the website saying he's the 3rd greatest coach in the history of football, and everybody just went nuts. And I'm like, he didn't accomplish as much as Lombardi or Paul Brown. And the reason I say that is because one of those guys invented the sport as we know it, and Paul Brown. And Lombardi, just before he got there, the Packers were horrible for 10 years. After he left, they were horrible for 25 years. When he was there, they won 5 championships in 9 years. So I always put those two guys kind of off to the side. They're literally icons. As my good friend Ron Borges says, that essentially Paul Brown is to football what Moses was to whatever Moses was, the Ten Commandments. So, so I do say that. I just have never appreciated the way the guy acts. I'm sorry. Even yesterday, now look, you could like the media, you can despise the media, you can have no opinion about the media, but they have a job to do. They have to ask questions. And look, now he's going to feel the heat from these same people who have covered him for 20 years, who he's treated like dirt. Let's face facts. Because there's a certain way you can answer questions. You don't have to be a complete a-hole every single game. And now that they're arguably the worst team, that ceases being funny. If you're even a Patriots fan, a Patriots fan, that here's a guy who, after back-to-back blowouts, is still kind of a curmudgeon and whatever he is. And that to me has always been a turnoff. If you don't like the attention that you get, go coach high school lacrosse. I'm sure they don't pay as well as what he has made with the Patriots.
I'll say this. I appreciate the consistency, whether you like it or not. You know what I mean? And he's not a guy who's going to cater to anyone. And there's something you can appreciate about that because, again,
I'll buy that. Yeah.
There's far too many phonies out there. So
right.
You may not like the end result, but he is who he is. And I think, look, there's going to be plenty of, anti-Belichick stories because, again, you talk about being covered for 20 years. I can think of maybe one reporter in that group that may have covered him, appropriately over the years. I mean, John, let's be honest. When you have someone in his 3rd year say the players hate their coach, well, guess what? Bill Belichick's the guy who kind of holds a grudge. And when you have a guy like, say, John Tomasi, who, reports on a story that is entirely fictitious, that brings a lot of heat on the organization, on Belichick specifically, well, guess what? You're probably never going to get anything good out of him ever again. And look, I don't blame him. So, I think there's
Mike
no, well, and I was going to bring that up because that's the one thing that normally he's always straight with Mike. He was again, that did bug me, and that's the one. That's really the only one, because at the end of the day, I put equal blame on both parties when it comes to the back and forth nature, because like, let's be honest, the media in this city, I don't believe is overall great. I think they're very yeah, look, we see it each and every week and every day. I mean, the people, the majority of the people that cover these teams have an agenda, and it isn't to necessarily be a beat reporter. It's to push what they want to push. And I think a lot of it has been overly negative, or at least, to the point where it's just like, if I'm Bill Belichick, I'm almost as crazy and ridiculously tired of their act as they are of his. You know what I'm saying? So I think there's equal blame around. I do not like the kind of the shortness with Mike Reese, because I do hold him. I think he is as bad as the rest of the group in general. I'm not saying everyone, but in general he is the exact opposite. He's like when George decided to do the exact opposite, and George is the rest of the media.
Well, I mean, there's still several reporters who I respect. I think Karen Garigi's done a great job there.
Of course.
So and he still treats everybody like dirt, which is just, it's, for me, it's uncalled for. Just, you know what? You're making big bucks. You're the head coach of the New England Patriots. You're lauded as being the greatest coach ever. Like, so officially he's Richard Nixon then. He's got the same exact mentality and disposition as Richard Nixon.
Yeah, but see,
like,
our disconnect here is that I feel like a majority of those people deserve the attitude that they get, because they're not good at their job and they don't bring value to.
Well, neither is he at 81 and 94 without Tom Brady. So join the club.
Well, hey, you know what? We'll say. Well, it remains to be seen. We'll see what happens. Hey, anything can happen in Vegas coming up this weekend, so we'll see.
Ooh,
yeah,
I sent a nice tease there.
Oh, it could be. I could be there. I don't know if I want to go to the game though. To be honest, do I want to pay for no offensive touchdowns?
Well, here's my theory, right? So I know we'll probably briefly speak about tonight's game. I hope Green Bay wins, because I picked them to win the North. They're not going to. Detroit looks really good, but I want to see Green Bay win. So you have 1-4 Patriots at 1-4 Raiders on Sunday. Maybe tomorrow we can get this breaking news that Jimmy Garoppolo has been traded to the Patriots for Mac Jones, because that would make Bill Belichick happy. That would make Josh McDaniels happy, and it would make it kind of an interesting game on Sunday. What do you think of
that? I'm sign me up.
All right.
Let's do it. But
let's get the best looking quarterback in the NFL back to New England.
Right. Let's.
That we can debate who's the best quarterback and all this other stuff, but the best looking quarterback in the NFL is one.
You're just saying that because he's a Paisan. I get it. It's okay. Well, it's all right. Yeah, it's all right. He is.
We're good looking people,
Hey, but anyways, before we go, though, before we go, I do want to bring up last night's Sunday Night Football game, because I did kind of tease it. Look, the Cowboys are frauds. I mean, let's stop pretending that they're a great team in the NFC. It's the Eagles and the 49ers right now in the NFC. Clearly, the Cowboys are not capable of beating good teams. And not only that, I mean, John, their margin of defeat was 3 points fewer than their defeat of the Patriots last week.
That's crazy, isn't it? I mean, we haven't seen a team win by 35 and then lose by 32 in back-to-back weeks. Talk about, Jekyll and Hyde.
And the alarming thing is 3 straight drives with interceptions from Dak Prescott. And this is after the week prior to the Patriots game. He threw a pretty bad interception late in the game that ultimately led to a defeat. So, it's last night was it did 2 things. One, it firmly it confirmed what I think we all felt, and that is San Francisco's clearly the best team in the league. There's no issues with Brock Purdy. There's no doubts in what he can do. This offense is Christian McCaffrey is probably. It could very easily be the MVP at this point in the season. The defense is their defense. And the other thing it tells us is what we kind of probably already knew too. And that is the Cowboys are frauds. They're frauds. I mean, they're nothing more than a regular season team that's going to look good against bad teams and get propped up because they play in Dallas and they have the star on their jersey. That's it. That's really what it is, John, because right now, Dak Prescott is not a guy you're going to win a big Super Bowl with or get to a big game with. It's just not going to happen. Not unless they somehow get to play some sub 500 teams in the playoffs, but that doesn't happen.
Week 2, they beat the Jets 30-10. That was the week after Aaron Rodgers got hurt, and they hadn't adjusted the offense for Zach Wilson. I bet if the Jets played the Cowboys again, the Jets could beat them because
I don't know if they could beat them, but
they'd be much more competitive.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'll give them that at least.
But here, I picked Dallas to play Cincinnati in the Super Bowl. I feel better about Cincinnati getting to the Super Bowl than I do Dallas because of Joe Burrow. I mean, he looked really good yesterday, and maybe this injury is now miraculously cured. Hey, he talked to Aaron Rodgers, right? So maybe Aaron Rodgers had some good things from him. Look, Aaron Rodgers is affecting all the quarterbacks in the league. Zach Wilson looks good the last 2 weeks. Joe Burrow's getting healthy, so he's like the mystic. The mystic to all quarterbacks, right?
Yeah, I'm sure that's the case. Whatever you believe, John. Whatever you believe.
I gotta hold on to something, and I got nothing else to play for here. These teams are all falling apart around us.
I know it's pretty bad. I got a friend from home who's a Giants fan, and it's like that classic what's that little video clip? Like, how did we get here? Look at us now. We're probably the 2 worst teams in the NFL. 2 of the worst teams in the NFL, at least.
Right now, 72-year-old Burt Jones is a better quarterback than Mac Jones and Daniel Jones.
Oof.
I bet he could throw the ball better than those 2 guys. And I'm not being hyperbolic. The guy had one of the best arms I've ever seen. Bill Belichick agrees with me on that. Ask Clark Judge that question when you.
Oh no, podcast. Trust me. We talk about Burt Jones just about every week. I understand.
He's awesome. He was awesome. That was like I tell people go back and look at highlights from the mid-'70s. The guy looked like a freak out there because he looked like a modern quarterback. Like just the way he moved, the way he threw. It's just the guy couldn't stay healthy. If he'd been transported to now, he'd be right there with the top quarterbacks in the league.
Before we go, too, and I'm glad you said healthy because it kind of triggered something that I wanted to bring up. This is one of the concerns when people project what Patrick Mahomes can and can't do in the future. How many times, if you're a Chiefs fan, how many times are you holding your breath when he gets hit in the legs? How many times has he gotten up gimpy, limping? Now, look, the cynic in me will sit here and say that he's a great actor and should be nominated for an Emmy. But the reality of it is the way he plays opens up the door for far more freak injury situations like we saw yesterday. And I'm thinking, how many games this season alone has someone hit him in the legs awkwardly and he's come up limping and someone rolled on his ankle and did this or did that. And I'm sitting here thinking man, if I'm a Chiefs fan, I'm holding my breath. And look, this is kind of the trade-off you get. If you're going to play the way he plays, opening up his body to throw the ball, throwing awkwardly, doing all these weird things, well, guess what? You're going to be far more vulnerable to injuries like that. Whereas, again, after Brady's injury, that was kind of everything that he tried to prevent. How he played was to avoid situations like that. So if you're expecting a long injury-free career, 20 years from Patrick Mahomes, he can't keep playing the way he's playing in terms of stylistically and opening his body up to injuries like that. Because I'm sitting here watching, and I'm like, we're not even halfway through October. And there's already been a few instances where I'm like, is he not going to get up from this? Is this going to be one of those really, it doesn't look bad at first, but when you really look at it, it's a terrible ankle injury or Achilles injury or knee injury. So yeah, I look, if I'm a Chiefs fan or if I'm the Chiefs in general, assuming he's not playing this up, then I'd be concerned.
Yeah, obviously it's a violent sport. The quarterbacks are more protected now than ever, but, he is someone that exposes himself. And again, the cynic in you would think may be making a good point. He may have a little LeBron James, a little Jim Brown. Jim Brown was famous for that, getting tackled, barely getting up, and then the next time he touches the ball, it's a 42-yard touchdown run. He would kind of play head games with the opposition. But, yeah, this is something that can happen because it only takes once, right? You're in the pocket. You step up, someone falls, rolls over, and next thing you know, you've got
take a look at that hit
injury
yesterday.
Right?
He was, if I remember correctly, he had an open stance. He wasn't, again, he wasn't like your typical quarterback, fall through delivery, that type of thing. And
Tom Amansky, right?
Yeah,
Brady should have changed his name to Tom Amansky because the guy, in terms of all of that, was perfect.
My head immediately goes to like the very rigid like movement in those commercials where the guy fields the ball at first base, stands up, pauses. He kind of looks like, you remember the Rookie, when he breaks his arm and he like cranks his arm back, pauses and throws. That's kind of what it is. But no, I mean there's a reason why Brady lasted so long in the league. It wasn't coincidence. It wasn't steroids. It wasn't, any of those things. It was an intense attention to detail and a commitment to making sure he didn't put himself in those positions. And yesterday was a really awkward position that he was in, and could, like I said, could have very easily got injured. Now, again, like you said, it's a violent sport, so those risks are always there, but you can minimize those risks, especially at the quarterback position, because you are protected. So you know what I mean? So you can make decisions and play certain ways to even further distance yourself from potential bad injuries like that. So, anyways, it's something that it feels like every week though, someone's rolling up on his legs, or he's getting moving awkwardly and twisting and turn. You know what I mean? So it's like, to me, and he's already had a knee injury by just doing a quarterback sneak. You know what I mean? So, this, like I said, if I'm the Chiefs, maybe I'm like little hesitant to keep seeing him get hit in the legs like that, especially the way he plays and how he, exposes his body to that. So anyways.
Well, just show him tape of Anthony Richardson, who's been taken off the field 3 times in 5 games because he refused to slide. And he's a physical player. Like those guys, Josh Allen, I worry about him because it only takes one. And it is a violent sport. These guys are freaks out there. So they have to be somewhat careful because you have to be on the field to help your team. I mean, it's not exactly a hot take that I just gave you. But, yeah, that's an important part of it.
No, it'll be like I said, it'll be interesting to see how a lot of those things we talked about today kind of play out. Like I said, to sum up, the Patriots are in trouble, the Cowboys are frauds, and Patrick Mahomes should take a page out of Tom Brady's book and focus more on his playing in the pocket. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, it's eventually his athleticism is going to wane as he gets older. That's the one thing that, like, Tom Brady was athletic. No, don't get me wrong, but he was athletic from a quarterback stance. Like, that doesn't mean you have to run 4.2 40s and do front flips and side flips and all that stuff. That just means that you're really good in a small space and you have great instincts. That's being athletic. And of course, the physical demand of football. Like, if you can handle that, guess what? You're an athlete. I don't care what people say. But I think, eventually as Mahomes gets older, those, the ability to run the way he does, the ability to move the way he does, that's going to wane. That just happens with age. So if he starts playing more pockets, and I think he has over the last several years, and I think it's made him a better quarterback. I mean, we can flash back to early discussions about Patrick Mahomes early on and how it was so boom or bust backyard football, and so far less that now. I mean, he's so much better in the pocket, which again has made him a better quarterback, no doubt about it. But I think even more so, an attention to that may be warranted because I feel like he's opening himself up far more to these bad injuries. And again, assuming he's not playing it up a bit, it seems to happen quite a bit that his legs are, cause for a deep breath from Chiefs Kingdom.
Yeah, without question. The league hopes that he stays healthy because right now he is the face of the league.
Yeah. So, sure it's not Taylor Swift?
She's second.
Okay, all right.
Travis Kelce, yes, absolutely. And Brock Purdy, who apparently is maybe the MVP of the league for all we know. Although he may not be the MVP of his team, it might be Christian McCaffrey.
There's too much anti-Brock Purdy out there. It's unfortunate. It really is, because the narrative being pushed is that he's a product of the system, and it's unfair. It's unfair because, again,
He's pretty good. I mean, he's pretty good.
Yeah, exactly.
He's okay. I'll take him.
Yeah, well, it's silly because your boy Nick Wright's already starting to do it.
Oh yeah.
It's unfortunate because that sort of mindset kind of seeps into the voters' mindset. We see it all season. We saw it in the Brady Rodgers in 2021. There was a very loud group of supporters for EPA and efficiency, which no one could ever really explain or understand that. Like, well, guess what? A marginal difference in efficiency, but a player throwing 200 more passes. That's a significant thing in favor of the player throwing more passes. But never mind that. That's not for today's discussion, unfortunately.
I was hoping that we would do a whole show without you mentioning.
No, well, I thought we were going to,
rate.
but my instincts naturally led me down this path. So yeah, but
and I end with this: imagine Rodgers or Brady playing in that offense.
I've been trying to imagine Brady playing in that offense for years, man.
Well, Rodgers too, because I mean he's another one who grew up a 49ers fan. His guy was Steve Young, obviously. Brady's was Montana, but
Makes
either
sense.
one of those guys. My Lord, they would have thrown. I mean, it wouldn't be hyperbolic to say maybe 6,000 yards. I mean, again, they run the ball so well, so there wouldn't be the opportunity. They're a big.
I will say this for the sake of being a upstanding journalist and someone who takes his opinions very seriously. I would say it would be a stretch to say 6,000 because I've been very anti Dan Marino ever approaching 6,000 yards. So I will say 6,000 yards is probably pretty entertainable, but 5,500, sure.
Oh, sure. You wouldn't have to go for 6,000 yards because you'd be up like 38 to 6.
That's a great game. And that's one of the things a lot of people don't think about. And like even like how often do we I don't think we've ever seen a team like the Patriots were as about the most vindictive, great offensive team I remember seeing. Obviously, I didn't watch football prior to the early 90s. But they went out and tried to score on you. But like even they rested starters, you know what I mean? So like you would have to really put the pedal to the metal, like full force, all those cliches for 17 straight games to be able to do stuff like that. And that's what I think people don't understand when they make these proclamations that, Marino's going to throw 60 touchdowns or 70 touchdowns and 6,500 yards. I'm like, I don't even think you have enough time in football games. Like, that's the thing. Like, you can add games, but you're not adding time to actual games. And that has a big factor into it, because it's like, well, you only have so much time to score, you know what I mean? So there's a lot of silliness that comes with that. So I will disagree with your 6,000 yards point, if only to remain consistent to all my detractors out there.
You are consistent, if anything.
Thank you. That's what I try to do. So, all right, that's going to do it for us here today. We will be back tomorrow to wrap up Monday Night Football. Packers or Raiders tonight?
Packers, because I want to see 1-4 versus 1-4 next week in Vegas when the Patriots travel there, and I want to see this trade: Garoppolo to the Patriots, Max to the Vegas Raiders, and we'll all be happy.
Well, I don't know about happy, but we'll be something. So, all right, that's going to do it. We'll talk to you all tomorrow. Have a great day.